Hello. Right, we're just going to go over Unit 3, Assignment 1. So we're just going to do a short talk, introduction, and talk through the assignment that's up there and what I want and what we don't need and all that good stuff. Okay? So, when you go into Moodle, you'll hopefully see a little box which has this information in it that you can see here. And we're talking about Assignment 1, so let's have a look in Assignment 1. All right, so what do I need from you? Well, let's start by going through the assignment brief. Okay. Click on it once. There we go. Preview. So obviously you saw the option to download there as well if you wanted. So, implement waste management techniques in the engineering workplace using process mapping to identify and eliminate waste. Okay. So, everyone who works in an engineering organisation has responsibility for continuous improvement. So let's first of all start by just unpacking that phrase, continuous improvement. What do we mean by that? So continuous improvement comes out of Japan, where it developed after the Second World War. An American chap named Denning had ideas on how to improve productivity in industry, and so he went around American companies and said, I've got these great ideas on how to improve productivity in industry, and the Americans didn't listen to him, and he might have been around the British, and the British didn't listen to him. So he went to Japan, and Japan, after the Second World War, economy was in ruins. They'd just lost a war, had 2 atomic bombs dropped on them, so they had nothing to lose, and thought, well, let's give this a try. The basic premise, starting point for continuous improvement is that you're continually improving. You're making lots of small adjustments, lots of small improvements. Yeah. So that's it. And no one improvement is revolutionary, but that the addition of all these small improvements adds up to something much bigger overall. And from this philosophy, there's a whole host of things that you can buy into or not. So the original thing is the Toyota method, which was developed by Toyota, applying Denning's principles on how these things should work. So there's the Toyota method, and the current leader these days is something called Six Sigma. And if you get good at Six Sigma and qualified in Six Sigma, you can earn quite a lot as a consultant going into companies and helping them apply Six Sigma or troubleshooting their Six Sigma processes. So it all gets quite complicated, statistics and tracking and all sorts of things. So if you want to look into that further, Six Sigma is your friend. Right. So that's continuous improvement. That's a very, very basic overview of what that means. So what we're being asked to do, right? She has asked you to walk through the process and use your recent training on process mapping to create a detailed flowchart, recording the steps involved in order to minimise waste in the process. Right. So accurately record in the form of a flowchart, process map, the process used to manufacture a product or carry out a service. Now, I appreciate that none of us are actually able to go into industry at the moment, so we perhaps need to adapt this slightly. And before lockdown occurred, we talked about kitchens. So could I suggest perhaps that we change the word industry to kitchen, and we think about a process in the kitchen. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is a flow chart. So let's just talk about flow charts. Where are we? Moodle. Let's just talk about flow charts. So here we are. We've got something on flowcharts. So hopefully, let's have a look at this. There we go. Look at that. A guide to understanding flowcharts presented in a flowchart form. So, do you understand flowcharts? So, what we've got here is a diamond, and a diamond is a decision box. So, from the diamond, we can go yes or no. Do you understand flowcharts? Yes. Let's follow this arrow. Do you understand flowcharts? No. Okay, you see the line labeled yes. Yes. And you can see the ones labeled no. No. So, this is a slightly silly flowchart. So, you can have a look at that, but hopefully gives you an overview of how flowcharts work. So diamonds are decisions, squares are endpoints, and you only go one way from a square, but you can go two ways from a diamond. Rectangle, sorry, rectangle. It's not a square, is it? All right, so that's flowcharts. It's exciting. Any questions about flowcharts, give me a shout. Okay. Right, and then and here we've got three tools which will help you create a flowchart. Okay, I think you might have to sign up for a couple, but in fact you can use Microsoft Word, which I think you should all have access to through the college. So there's a few options there to create your own flowcharts. Okay. So it's the process. So in order to produce a flowchart of a process, we need a process. So again, let's stick in the kitchen. Can I suggest, I don't know, if you do some cooking, you pick something you can cook and you use that as your process. Okay. So you start with your recipe. It's practically done for you, I guess. Your recipe is a large part of your process, but some recipes are better than others. So you can set out your process. What do you do? What order do you do it in? Is your rice is the water for your rice boiling? Yes, do this. Is the water for your rice boiling? No, do the next thing. Has 10 minutes gone by? Yes, do this. Have your potatoes been in the oven for half an hour? No, do the other thing. So you could tackle a kitchen process like that. If you've never made anything in the kitchen, maybe now's the time to learn. What else you got to do? So a simple meal or a simple recipe. Beans on toast. You could probably get away with doing it for a cup of tea, but we don't want any simpler than that, really. And if you're doing a cup of tea, I want it done really, really well, because it should be something we all know how to do, hopefully. Or coffee if you're not a tea drinker, or I don't know. You get the idea, hopefully. Yeah. So we'll pick a kitchen process and we'll do a flowchart of that process. Okay. And I want that writing up, please. I'd like that done deeply. So I say use these three tools here to help you do that. I'll let you explore those in your own time. Try them all, see which one you like. Okay. Might be a chance if you have to sign up with your college email address, because sometimes then you get a free educational account. I don't know whether that's true for those, but might be worth a try. Okay. Right. So that's our first protocol then. That's the first thing that we're being asked to do. So accurately record in the form of a flowchart process map the process used to make something in the kitchen. Okay. Right. When you've done that, your flowchart will need to identify each step as either a value added or non-value added activity. So we just need to back up now and think, well, what do we mean by these terms? What's the difference between value added and non-value added activity? And the clue is kind of in the name. A value added activity adds value to a product. So we'll talk industry and then we'll talk kitchens. So in industry, you buy raw materials, so steel bar, for example, and then just like some of you managed to do in the workshop. We took that steel bar, we did things to it, and we increased its value because of the processes that we'd done. So you take the steel bar, you make something out of it, and you can sell the something that you've made for more than the cost of the material that you made it from, because you have done things to it in such a way that other people value what you have made. So that's a value added task. So as an example, drilling a hole is a value added task. Bending the metal is a value added task. Using a press to press the metal into the shape you want would be a value added task. Okay, so that brings us on to our next thing, which is a non-value added activity. So a non-value added activity. A non-value added activity is one where no value is added from the. Excuse me, just a second. Non-value added activity. Again, clues in the name. It's an activity which doesn't add value to your product. So, for example, taking the product from one end of the factory to the other, so the next process can be done on it. Moving it from one end of the factory to the other does not add value. Just moving it from one machine to another does not add value. Storing it before you dispatch it does not add value to the product. So you can't reduce non-value added activity to zero, but you can lower it from no doubt, from where it is before you start the exercise. So that's a non-value added activity. So looking at your back to the kitchen, then getting ingredients from the fridge would be a non-value added activity. Chopping carrots would be a value added activity. Time spent, food spent in the oven would be value added. I guess it is value added because it's a process, isn't it? Is adding value to the activity. Okay, so these things add value to the activity. So you need to look at your process in the kitchen and decide what adds value and what doesn't. And so moving things around, having things sit and cool while other things cook doesn't add value, but chopping and cooking and heating do add value, perhaps. So that's your next step. Okay, you need to identify at least 4 or more non-value added steps. Okay. For each of the non-value added steps you have identified, suggest realistic improvements. Okay, so you've identified 4 non-value added steps and you're suggesting improvements. So that could be making sure that you have you organize the ingredients so that it's easy to get them. You might imagine that in your kitchen you only do that one process. You only make that one thing, and that might make recommendations for realistic improvements easier. If you were just making that one thing in your kitchen day in, day out, what realistic improvements would you make for each of your 4 non-value added tasks? Okay. All right. So, and then you can go back to your flowchart and you can annotate. So just, if put a comment next to each non-value added task, just to say what you've done to reduce that. All right. Okay, so once you've done that on your old flowchart, make a new flowchart. So save as on your original, and then edit it, taking into account your recommendations and how that would improve your process. Okay. Finally, part C, it says prepare a presentation with speaker notes that evaluates the benefits gained by each of the improvements to the process you have made. And part of this evaluation will explain which of the improvements is likely to provide the greatest impact on reducing waste in the process overall. So part C, you could either put together a PowerPoint with some notes, or you could do a brief Word document that just says, that the benefits from this are a reduction in non-value added costs because of this, or it reduces this. And I think improvement number 4 will have the biggest impact overall because it will reduce this, and this. Okay, and that's what we want from this assignment. So the portfolio of evidence must include flowchart process map of improved, a presentation. So it can be a presentation, it can be a Word document. I don't mind which, as long as you evaluate, say your improvements. Say how they improve, why they improve, and which one's the best. All right. Okay. And that's it, really. That should allow us to get there. So if we just scroll down a bit, pass 1, map a business process and identify necessary waste. So that's just pass 1, producing the flowchart. Pass 2, make changes to your flowchart in order to reduce unnecessary waste. M1, make changes to a business process based on a comprehensive process map. So that's starting with a detailed flowchart. And then distinction 1 is evaluate the benefits gained. So, this is a good benefit because, if this might be able to be improved further in an industrial setting by, I think this benefit is the best benefit. Brings the most. This thing brings the most benefit because of this, and this, and that affects everything else. Blah 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 blah. Okay. I would say any questions about that, but obviously this is a recording, so it's kind of pointless. Right, so have a watch of this video. Hopefully I've not gone on too long. 15 minutes, 17 minutes, crikey. Have a watch of this video. If you've got any questions, please drop me a line in Microsoft Teams. All right, thank you very much, and bye-bye.